Hey everyone, it's Alex Ruff, your Member of Parliament for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. This is a special update for really all those law-abiding firearms owners in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound, but really across the country that just I want to provide a quick sort of update on where we are with the terrible bill C-21. So if you remember last June of 2022, the Liberal government came forward again with Bill C-21 under the pretense that they're going to introduce a handgun freeze. Lo and behold, what the bill actually included was not only a handgun freeze, an element to ban airsoft, basically paintball, from that community from having firearms, and as well introduced some red flag laws that I'll get into a little bit later. They actually made the handgun freeze possible through regulation in the fall, October of last year of 2022. And that's really when the debate started and we got involved with it within the House of Commons. Once it got sent to committee there in October, lo and behold, we listened to testimony, some great work by my colleagues that sit on the Public Safety Committee. And they listened to testimony, had experts come in, and it really laid out the challenges with this piece of legislation, in particular around the airsoft and the red flag laws. Once the debate was done and the testimony was done, the Liberals, the different parties had the opportunity to introduce amendments. Lo and behold, literally as the clause-by-clause review started on the bill, at the last minute, the Liberals table dropped, as it made the news, amendments G4 and G46 that amounted to hundreds of pages of amendments. Literally 2 to 4 times thicker than this, because I printed everything out here, including those amendments, double-sided, and 2 pages per page, so there's literally 4 pages in one. For just to keep the size of the binder down. And the debate started then. It didn't take long for the backlash to happen from all the law-abiding firearms owners across the community, our Indigenous communities. In fact, there was an emergency resolution passed by the AFN, completely calling for the scrap of Bill C-21. And again, so kudos to all you law-abiding firearms owners out there for doing that. Once the backlash, before that even started though, we recognized this amendment to go after hunting rifles and shotguns was completely out of scope with the original bill. We actually challenged the chair, I believe it was my colleague Dane Lloyd, who challenged the chair that this was outside the scope. The chair said it was. We challenged him. We had a chance to defeat it because ourselves and I believe the Bloc were on board. Unfortunately, the NDP supported the Liberals and did not squash it right then and there. Once the backlash then became so apparent, the NDP started backtracking. The Liberals realized how much trouble they were in, and they even filibustered, I think, meetings on end by themselves. I think the MP Nur Mohammed spent 2 meetings himself where he successfully filibustered and asked basic firearms 101 questions just to further delay as they were scrambling to find a solution. Christmas happened, the Christmas recess happened. The minister said, we're needing to consult. They went from they're not banning hunting rifles to even, I'll quote the Prime Minister, our focus now is on saying, okay, yes, that we're going to have to take away from people who were using them to hunt. That they're going to take away your hunting rifles, your shotguns from those that hunt, as they realize that's exactly what their amendment did. Due to the hard work of everyone, fortunately in early February when we returned to the House of Commons, the Liberals finally withdrew the bill. There was additional consultations around the amendment that they originally tabled. Didn't quite make sense to me, although we did have our suspicions. That ended. The committee then had to wait 6 weeks for the Minister of Public Safety to appear at Public Safety. So the committee couldn't study or couldn't continue on with the clause-by-clause review of the bill because the minister didn't bother showing up at committee. He did finally show up. Lo and behold, a week later, May the 1st, you see the Marco Mendicino make a press announcement. They're going to introduce yet another amendment defining what they mean, redefining a prohibited firearm. They love to use in the press the so-called military-style assault rifles. Again, no clarity around that. The term does not exist anywhere. I've been trying 3 years to get any clarity on what they mean by that. They talk about banning firearms that were used on the battlefield. They refuse to even acknowledge or find a single one on the list of banned firearms. But the point is, this new definition that came forward is ultimately about going to the future. So I don't know how you're banning firearms designed for the battlefield when they're not even designed yet. We had a technical brief very quickly on that, but they showed up at committee the next day, introduced this new amendment. We had lots of questions from all the parties on what they meant by this amendment. That occurred, really lasted a meeting and a half to get through that amendment, and eventually, despite our opposition to it, it passed, and we continued on with the rest of the clause-by-clause review. Somehow, especially coming from the NDP and Peter Julian, they accused the Conservatives of somehow filibustering the committee in the clause-by-clause process. Not sure how they did that, but we understood their logic because, again, they want to get this through. Time allocation with the Liberal and NDP coalition was introduced into the House of Commons, forced through, basically curtailing debate in this past week. So this past week's been crazy. We've got through that sittings, and again, due to a great team effort from all the Conservative members of Parliament, where that committee literally sat from 3:30 to midnight on Wednesday and Thursday, after sitting, I believe, 3:30 to 9 o'clock, no, 3:30 to 7 on Tuesday this week. So I don't know how many, I can't even add, likely 20 hours of debate alone this week. Little bit of good news. I was fortunate I was able to table my own amendment that successfully got through the committee. That does make the bill slightly better in that it does provide that clarity to firearms owners out there that when you're dealing with a mental health issue, even those that own restricted firearms and handguns, that you're able to temporarily store your firearms with another RPAL individual or a business that has the requisite license to handle the firearm while you get the necessary treatment, and then you can go through that authorization of transport to get your firearm back through the respective provincial or territorial chief firearms officer. As well, in the good news, we were able to get the airsoft portion of the bill stripped out. Now to the bad news. Bad news, we thought the red flag laws, which, to be fair, we all thought were a good idea when they were initially included in the bill, but upon hearing from the countless women's groups, it was clear that what this proposal and what the Liberals have now done with this piece of legislation have introduced a process that's going to make it even more difficult for mainly women that are in a violent situation with their intimate partners, their domestic partners that have firearms, that they've actually made it tougher for them to get the necessary support needed to flag those concerns with law enforcement versus making it easier. We honestly thought that both the Bloc and the NDP would support removing that. Again, the NDP showed where their loyalties lie. It's not with firearms owner, but it's with keeping this Liberal government propped up, and they actually supported these red flag laws that have so many shortfalls in them. So ultimately, the debate's now ended at committee. The bill did pass despite our opposition. It will now go back to the House of Commons next week for report stage and third reading. Again, curtailed to 1 day each due to the time allocation motion by the Liberals with the NDP support. So ultimately, the only thing that everybody can do out there in the short term here is you can continue to pressure, in particular, for those that know people or live in NDP or Liberal held ridings, reach out to your member of Parliament and again, try to instill in them that this bill is not going to do anything to actually help public safety and reduce gun violence in Canada. It's targeting the most law-abiding demographic in Canada, lawful abiding firearms owners, and we're not targeting criminals. In addition, you need to start reaching out now to the senators across Canada, because they now need to study this bill once it gets out of the House, likely by the end of the next week. And they're the ones that can maybe help fix this terrible piece of legislation, or with a bit of luck, maybe even potentially reject it in its totality. So remember, scrap Bill C-21, and let's do our best to make sure the next federal election there's a conservative majority government, so that we can reinstill the property rights for our law-abiding firearms owners. Again, I appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to this long explanation, but I thought it important that all the law-abiding firearms owners out there understand where we are with Bill C-21.